This is Pastor Errol Williams here. I want to say welcome to each and every one that's listening. And so excited, in fact, to have the opportunity to share with you tonight what I call our Thursday night tips. And in this session, I'll be sharing with you on a subject that's very, very close to my heart, the master listener. So I would like to take just 1 hour of your time to share with you any thoughts that come to me on that subject. I have prepared a few slides and I am looking forward to share that with you. You are only able to communicate with me one way tonight, that is through clgop.com, and then you click on the button underneath that takes you to the YouTube link where you can actually chat to me from the chat room. That's the only way you'll be able to communicate with me tonight. So I will get started in the next 60 seconds. Just want to make sure that everything is okay sound-wise. Good evening to everyone. So I will get started in the next. Yes, my sound seems to be okay. I'd just check something here. Okay, just making sure that everything's okay. If the sound is not okay or if there is any challenges, please. In fact, there was a feedback just a moment ago, but now I think I've resolved that. Let me just check that again. Yeah, just got that corrected. Okay, well done. All right, well, welcome again, everyone. And I will get started. As I say, it's only 1 hour, and I have quite a few slides. If I don't get through the entire subject tonight, then I will indeed pick back up on this next week. But just want to take an hour of your time to share with you on the master listener. I'd like to start off, if you like, with just an introduction of myself. My name is Errol Ainsworth Williams, and there are some details there of how you can actually reach me if you so wish. You can always come back, if you like, after the recording and actually, listen to the rest of the show. I'm going to go through as fast as I can. Obviously, if there are any questions, I will see those and I will address that as we go through. Well, I'm a family person. I'm happily married, in fact, 6 children, 6 grandchildren. I'm 59, born in 1959. Well, I'll be 59 this year in September, so I'm looking forward to my 50th birthday. Can you believe that? Okay, just some community involvement, things that I've been doing in the community. 37 years in leadership experience. I've been working in the prison and senior pastor. Systematic theology is a course that I have been running for many years. I've also been involved in a very large community organization known as Bridge Park, which started by a group called HPCC, where we introduced His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, to the project so many years ago. And also the Atumfu Ozitutu II, his name used to be called Nana Bonsu. And there's a picture of me there with him in his palace in Ghana. Other community things I've done, I'm a management trainer, and I've been doing training now for a number of years, in fact, 34 years in management training, and also trained thousands of people around the country and around different parts of the world. With what some subjects I'll just share with you in a moment. Just as a brief description as to who I am. These are some of the clients I've had the opportunity of working with over the years. Really has been a tremendous experience, especially, in fact, with some of the freelance training that I've done for certain companies, especially John Matchett. They were indeed an amazing freelance company. And so you can see some of the companies I've had the privilege of working with. There are many more. There's at least another 100, but I just didn't put those up. I've also run a variety of courses for those companies, around 33 different types of courses I've run over those years, and you can see a range of them on this sheet there before you. Also, I am the author of these 4 books, and my 5th book is on its way, just a month or 2 away. Can't wait for it to come out. It's called Building a Dream. So those are the 4 books that's available today, as you can see on your screen. The first one was Pursuing Excellence, and the 4th one was Tips for Dealing with Difficult Conversations. Some of my interests you can see here. I'm a qualified bricklayer. I ran for the general election in 2010, didn't win. A professional photographer, designer, and internet expert, cricket, backgammon, chess. But my passion, if you like, is, I would say, is developing attitude, skills, and knowledge through learning. Hence the reason why I take so much time to run some of these things I'm doing. So my focus tonight is on what I call the master listener. The master listener. And if you have any questions or any comment, please don't hesitate to let me have those in the chat room. I want to say welcome to Pat and Lucas. Really great to have you guys here with me tonight, and I really do appreciate you guys being here. As I said, I'm going to go through very fast tonight, so you can always come back and watch the recording if you so wish. If I don't finish tonight, then I will most certainly finish it off next week. All right. The master listener is my focus. Now, we spend around 60% of our time listening. You know, when we're awake, that is. We spend 60% of our time listening. And our retention, according to research, is only around 20%. So there is a great need, if you like, for listening skill courses. I think it should be taught in schools, universities, all over the place. I think it should be one of those subjects that everyone should actually take. So you can see there, we spend 60% of our time listening and only a retention of around 25%. Now, when we do listen, there is filters that we listen through. I call it viable culture. So you can actually easily remember what it is. We actually filter what we listen through our values, what we believe are the most important things to us in life, our intentions, our attitude, beliefs, languages, and expectations, as well as our culture. Different things means different things to different people. Different words mean different things to different people. So we all have a filter. So it's very important, therefore, that we understand how to listen far better. Now, I would say this is one of the greatest tips that I can share with you tonight. I think it's one of the greatest tips I could share with you, is to listen more, speak less, and to control your anger. In fact, there is one of our writers of the Bible who says, be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger. So I believe this is probably one of the most powerful tips that I will share with you tonight, is to listen more, speak less, and control your anger. In fact, someone once said we have 2 sets of ears and one mouth, so we should listen twice as much as we speak. And I think that's a very good practice, if you like. I think one of the highest forms of respect that we can show to another person is to listen to them, to give them our undivided attention. That's a really important point as to the fact that when we listen to people, it's one of the highest form of respect that we can give to another person. When you listen to people very well, you're respecting them. You're respecting their views as you give attention to what they are saying to you. Now, when you master listening, and here are some benefits I believe that you will obtain as you go through. Let me just take my picture off here. So here are some benefits I believe that you would gain if you master listen. You'll cause others to take a good look at themselves. You'll make friends very easily. Not only that, you save yourself stress, time, energy, and a lot of money. You'll feel more powerful, confident, self-controlled, completely in charge. You'll increase knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. This is really important. You'll also be more compassionate toward others. As I've said before, you're growing confidence, be respected and loved. Why? Because people know that you're listening to them. You love listening to others. You find it very easy to socialize with others. And not only that, you'll also feel good about yourself. So it's very important, therefore, that we master listening. And I think we should master it from a very young age, even from a very young age, as indeed, nursery and school coming through. We should really learn how to listen. There are 3 different kinds of listeners. Very important to note. There are passive listeners, aggressive listeners, and what we call assertive listeners. Now, I just want to go through these 3 so you can see exactly what I'm referring to. Again, passive, aggressive, and assertive. So let's deal with the passive listener first of all. The passive listener uses common phrases like "you're okay," "I'm not okay." They easily give up. They listen but rarely speak. Don't get straight to the point. Beat around the bush quite a lot. Deny their own feelings. Put other people before themselves, and mumble and make a lot of excuses. And you want to ask yourself the question, which one of these three am I? Where do I spend most of my time when I listen to people, when I talk to people? Am I a passive listener, always putting myself down, criticizing myself, but elevating other people? All right, very shy, never get straight to the point, etc. Now let's look at the aggressive listener. The aggressive listener's common phrase is, "I'm okay, you're not okay." In other words, I'm better than you, okay? Always interrupting other people, rarely listening but talk a great deal, telling off others but never finding any fault with himself, finding blame and fault with other people, make fun of other people, and criticize and complain a great deal. And one of the key thing about the aggressive listener is that always interrupting. And it's a sign of disrespect to the other person. Indeed, it's quite embarrassing, in fact, to be unheard or not being listened to. Is very, very, very disappointing. And if you've tried listening to somebody or trying talking to somebody and they're not listening to you, how does it feel? It doesn't feel really all that great. It feels really, really, really pretty bad, in fact. All right. Let's have a quick look then at what I call the assertive listener. Assertive listener now is an interesting person because their common phrase is, "I'm okay, you're okay." And that's a really good starting point. I'm okay, you're okay. They're very empathic. They try to understand by putting themselves in your shoes or in the other person's shoes, and so on. They listen actively to others, all right? They negotiate and compromise. They love people, and they love to listen to other people. They're very clear and very direct, very specific. They always get straight to the point. They don't beat around the bush. And the key thing about the assertive listener is that they care as much about your feelings and what you have to say as much as they care about their own feelings and about what they have to say. So I love to spend time with those people. I think it's really fun being around those people. I want to share with you a statement made by King Solomon. I think it's a really amazing statement. He said, "Let people finish speaking before you try to answer them. That way you will not, number one, you won't embarrass yourself and you won't look foolish." In the same statement, someone rewrote it another way. "Listen before you answer. If you don't, you're being stupid and insulting." Now I want you to notice those 4 words that is being used right there. It says, if you don't listen to people, really, you're embarrassing yourself and you're looking foolish. Not only that, you're being stupid and insulting. Now that is really, really amazing. Let's say it again. When you don't listen to people, okay, you're embarrassing yourself. You're looking foolish, according to the wise man Solomon. You're also being stupid and insulting. Now, it's interesting actually when we look at wars and all the things that go on in families and in the workplace and so on. Probably it's because we're not understanding each other. Probably because we're not listening to each other. Does that make sense? Because when we don't listen to each other, it leads to these points I'm making here: embarrassment, foolishness, stupidity, and insulting. And those things are what leads to war. All right. So if we know how to listen effectively, I think we can save ourselves a lot of problems. We could save our marriages and relationships and things like that. So it's very, very important, therefore, that we listen very, very effectively. Conscious listening leads to understanding. This is really, really true. Conscious listening consciously, which is what I want to go into now, as I want to share with you the 6 key things that makes listening so beautiful. All right, 6 key things. But always remember, conscious listening leads to understanding. And that's really what you want. You want to make sure that you understand what the other person is saying to you. All right. I came across this mnemonic many years ago, probably around 20 years ago, by a company called Melrose. So I'm not the one who devised this mnemonic, but indeed the points I will make are my points. In other words, points I've researched. Let's put it that way. But the actual mnemonic, L-I-S-T-E-N, was not devised by me. But it's a very powerful memory aid, so that you don't have to look for your paperwork or for your notes that you made. All you have to do is remember L-I-S-T-E-N and remember what it stands for, and there you have it. So let's start then with the L, if you like, and the L stands for look interested. All right, look interested. So I just want to make a few points in terms of look interested. Now, whenever you're listening to someone or you're talking to someone, look interested. All right. In other words, give that person your undivided attention. Do not watch TV. Do not use your computer. Do not play around with your phone. But turn around, face the person, and give the person your undivided attention. Let the person believe and know that what they're saying is the most important thing ever said on planet Earth. Give them your undivided attention. Maintain eye contact. Look in their face. Look into their eyes, okay? Look at them. Face them and turn to them and look at them, all right? Give that person acknowledgement responses such as, oh, I see. Really? That's quite interesting. Never. Say that again. And by doing that, that person will get the impression that you're really interested in what they have to say. Now, if you look interested, that person will open up and talk to you. So tip number 1 is to look interested. Don't continue to watch a TV. Don't continue to use your computer. Get off the phone. Put it away. Does that make sense? Turn and face the person. Give the person eye contact. And give the person acknowledgement responses. And let the person know that you are there with them. So that's tip number 1, is to look interested. I think that's quite a useful tip. The next one then is to inquire with questions. Inquire with questions. Very important. All right, so let's go into this a little bit more then. The quality of your learning will be determined by the quality of the questions that you ask. I just thought I'd throw that point in because it's so powerful. When you're around great people, ask great questions. Great questions will lead to great answers. I noticed, in fact, with the man Jesus Christ, whenever he was asked questions, he was able to give some really amazing answers. Now, when I'm around great people, I don't talk. I just ask questions. I don't talk about me, in other words. I ask them lots and lots of questions. And I know the greater the question will be, the greater my learning. Voltaire says, judge a man by his questions rather than by his answers. I think that's a really profound point. So when you're listening to people, I strongly recommend that you ask 2 kinds of questions: open questions and closed questions. Open questions elicit larger response, gives you quite a lot of information. So when you ask questions like, how are you today? Or how are you feeling? Or you might say, why did you do that? Or why did that happen? Why do you think that happened? And so on. That will cause the person to open up and really give you unlimited amount of information, which is really useful whilst listening to them. You can also ask closed questions. Closed questions give you just a quick answer, all right, small amount of information, but still very useful. And you might want to ask what or where questions, like maybe, what's your name? What time is it? What did you do? Type of thing. Or where did you go? Where are you coming from? So that may give you a limited amount of information, but you still have information nonetheless. I strongly recommend that when you're listening to someone, if you want to get information, listen to them. Spend time listening and spend time asking great questions. Now, I want you to notice, for example, if I use a picture of a tree, what you want to do is to make sure you get to the root of the tree, because the best way to destroy a tree is to destroy the root. I think that's fair to say. So when you're listening to someone, especially if there's an issue or there's a problem in the situation, you want to ask enough questions until it gets you to the root of the matter. Question, questions, question. I would suggest that you become a master at asking questions. I strongly recommend that you do that. So, tip number 2 is to ask questions. Lots of questions. Open-ended, closed questions that you can ask. All right. Tip number 3 then is what we call stay on target. All right. You want to make absolutely certain that when you're listening to the person, you stay on target. All right. So let's look at that then. Stay on target is a very, very important tip. Do not allow yourself to be manipulated or sidetracked. And don't you do that to the other person. Don't manipulate them. Don't sidetrack them. Stay focused. Stay on target. Discuss only one thing at a time. Now, if other things come up in the conversation, you can actually add those to maybe your agenda of things to discuss when you finish this particular point. But it's very, very important when you're listening to someone that you stay on target. Now, there are people who are very good at trying to take you off target, but your job is to stay focused, stay on target, stay with that one thing that you're dealing with. If anything else come up, then you can put that on the agenda item of things to discuss when you finish this particular point. Again, as I say, don't allow yourself to be manipulated or sidetracked. Your job is to stay on target. So look interested, all right? Face the person, stop what you're doing, give them your undivided attention. When you are listening, ask lots of questions. Open-ended questions, closed questions. Number 3, make sure you stay on target. Right. This one is really, really important. It's test your understanding or feedback. Test your understanding or give feedback. Very, very important. If you don't do this one, there will most certainly be war. So, communication is a 3-way process. Now, I want to use this triangle to give you a demonstration of what I mean by that. It's a 3-way process. Number 1, sender. Number 2, receiver. Now, you can't stop just there, because if there is no feedback, you cannot guarantee 100% accuracy of information between the sender and the receiver unless there is feedback. If there is no feedback, you cannot guarantee 100% accuracy between sender and receiver. So whoever send and whoever receive, both of you are responsible to ensure feedback. Whether you're the sender or whether you're the receiver, really makes no difference. It is your responsibility to make sure you give feedback. So when you're listening to someone, you might say something like, so what you're saying is, you start off with so what you're saying is, or if I understand you correctly, what you mean is, or if you're talking to somebody and you want them to give you feedback, just ask them for feedback. So what do you understand from what I've said so far? That's a question that you may want to ask them. What do you understand from what I've said so far? Now, if you don't give feedback or receive feedback, you can actually waste a lot of time. Now, I know of a particular manager that asked one of his supervisors to write a report. Supervisor went away, wrote the report, took 3 days to write, brought it to the manager, presented it to the manager read it and said, this is not what I asked you for. Well, neither of them did not check whether or not they both understood or were asking for the same thing. Now, Winston Churchill, in one of his books, spoke about a situation between the American and the British during World War II. Now, the Americans wrote a report and brought it to the meeting that they had with the British. The British says, well, we need to table this particular report. And they argued and they argued and they argued, only until later they realized that they were both arguing for the same thing. You see, the word tabled to the British meant you put it on the table for discussion right now. But the word tabled to the Americans meant you put it in a drawer, close that drawer, and you forget about it. But they didn't realize they wanted the same thing, but the word tabled meant different things to the Americans than what it meant to the British. So different words mean different things to different people. So you want to make sure you spend enough time testing your understanding or asking for other people's understanding. Because, listen to this carefully, this is one of the major reasons why there are so much misunderstanding going on in our marriages, in our homes, in our school, in our churches, in society in general, simply because we are not giving feedback. Now, let me go a little bit further. What is the feedback stage in the education system? You got it. It's exam. The teachers, the sender, the pupils, the receiver, they want to make absolutely certain that the children understood clearly what has been said. So they have examination. How much do we spend on examination? Billions of pounds throughout the year in the United Kingdom, for example, on examination. We spend lots and lots of money on it. What is the feedback stage in companies? Well, appraisal systems sometimes, or different kinds of reviews that we have. Are you with me? So that we want to make absolutely certain that everyone understands. So when you're listening to someone, make sure you test your understanding. Give or receive feedback. Whether you're the sender or the receiver, it is your responsibility. Why? Because you don't want to waste time, right? You don't want to waste time. You want to save yourself stress, time, energy, and money. All right? That's what you want to do. You want to make sure you save yourself. Let me go back to this slide I showed you before. You want to save yourself stress, time, energy, and money. So you want to make absolutely certain that you give feedback, because if you don't give feedback, you could have major challenges on your hands. All right. Now, evaluate the whole message. When you're listening to someone, you want to make sure that you evaluate the whole message. Now, it's interesting actually to discover. Now, let me show you this diagram that I prepared for you. There are three elements of communication when you're actually face-to-face with someone. All right? When you're face-to-face with someone, there are three elements of communication. There is words, tone of voice, and body language. Words, tone of voice, and body language. I want you to note, survey and research has been done to show which of these three give the most amount of information. And you can see there straight away that body language gives 55%. So when you're listening to someone, talking to someone, 55% of what you heard or understood or perceived was from their body language. 38% of what you heard, what you saw, what you received, was their tone of voice. And only 7% was words. Can you see, therefore, how we have spent more time on the words and really not spending a lot of conscious time on the 93% of communication that was nonverbal? 55% and 38%, making up 93% of nonverbal communication. You see how important nonverbal communication is versus the verbal communication of words. Words only make up 7%. 93% of what you are understanding, what you are perceiving from the other person, or what they are perceiving or understanding from you, is nonverbal. Your body is always speaking. All right? Always remember that your body is always speaking. It's interesting to know, actually, that when you're on the phone, for example, there's a slight difference when you communicate on the phone. 14% of what you understand or what you are perceiving from the other party is done through words. And 84% is done through the tone of voice. So your tone is very, very important, as well as the words when you communicate on the phone. But if we go back one step and look back at the communication in terms of face-to-face communication, This is really crucial. When I learned this some years back, I was absolutely blown away with how powerful this information really was to me. It really was an amazing piece of information. And I began to watch my own body language, observe my tone of voice more. How did it sound to me? How does it sound to those I'm talking to? Am I sitting up when I'm talking to that person? Am I slouching back? What's going on? So I strongly recommend that you pay close attention to your own nonverbal communication. That is your body language and the tone of your voice, especially when you're dealing with your spouse. All right, bear that in mind. All right, let's move on then to another area, the same area about evaluating the whole message. As I made mention before, 93% is really, really very important. So let's have a close look at that now. That is broken down, that 93%, in these 6 areas. Your mouth. What impression does your mouth give? Because your mouth really is what changes your facial expression. All right? Your mouth, your smile. Are you smiling? Are you appropriately, should I say, when you're speaking to that person? Or are you really angry? And I'm not sure how to give an angry look. Oh dear. How is your appearance? You know, the way you're dressed, the way you look and so on. Your gesture, your hands, in other words. What are your hands doing? All right? Your whole body, your posture. Are you sitting up, standing, sitting, slouching? What are you doing? Remember again, as I mentioned before, 38% is to do with your voice. And I put RSVP, the rhythm, the speed, the volume, and the pitch. All of that is very, very important. Your tone of voice, the rhythm of your voice, the speed at which you're speaking, the volume. You know, you're speaking to someone and you've raised the volume. It sends certain type of information to the person, whether you believe it or not. And the pitch, how did you pitch that, and so on. Your eyes, what are your eyes doing when you're talking to someone, listening to someone? Let's say you're listening to someone, but your eyes are on the floor or it's on the ceiling somewhere, and they're talking to you. They're getting the impression that you're either very, very shy, or you're not interested in what they're saying, or they're boring. They're boring you. So it's very, very important that you are very conscious about your body language. This is a major, major area, and I strongly recommend that you spend some time focusing on your body language. All right. Now, I want to come to another point, which I think is so, so important. All right. And that is tip number 6 of my 6 powerful tips. I've been using these tips for so many years, and they have been awesome. Is to neutralize or control your feelings. Let me say this, and I'm going to make this point. This is probably the hardest thing on planet Earth to accomplish. I want to stop there and just take a moment to see if that one can be digested. Neutralizing or controlling our feelings is probably the hardest thing on planet Earth to do. King Solomon says, if you cannot control yourself, your anger, you're as helpless as a city without walls open to attack. Take, for example, the street of London, the city of London. I want you to imagine tonight there are no security guards, there are no police, there are no TV cameras, there's not a soldier or a police to be found 100 miles, within 100 miles from the city of London. There are no cameras, as I said before, no police, no army, none of those things. What do you think would happen to the city of London tonight? Absolutely, it would be demolished. Thieves and vandals and all kind of people will be down the city of London tonight, taking all that they can get, destroying the rest. The place would be like that picture you see there. Now, those of us, this is what Solomon is saying, if you cannot control your anger or neutralize or control your feelings, then you're like as helpless as the city of London without any security defenses whatsoever, open to attack by anyone. And this is exactly what I believe happens to us who do not have any form of control over ourselves. I like what Solomon himself went on to say. He that is able to control himself is mightier than a man that, take over a city, etc. That's why I said this has got to be the most powerful thing, or if not the most hardest thing for us to do on planet Earth. Many of us, we have gone through life and we have never controlled our feelings, never controlled our anger, and so on and so forth. And we allow people to come into our lives and we go away hurt. We blame them for being hurting us. So-and-so hurt me. Hey, listen to this carefully. No one can hurt me without my permission. I like what Roosevelt's wife said. She said, no one can make you feel inferior without your permission. I think that's a really powerful point. No one can make you feel inferior without your permission. They have to have your permission, and no one can make me angry or upset me or make me mad without my permission. Now, I have the right to be upset. I have the right to be mad and angry, but no one can make me angry just in and of themselves. I have to agree with that. So I strongly recommend that when you're listening to someone, you make sure that you try your best to neutralize, to control the way you feel. Because listen to this carefully. If you get upset and become angry and irate during the conversation, the communication stops. A lot of people don't realize that. Our feelings, if we allow our feelings to get in the way, it stops, it hinders the progress of our communication. So you got to be able to control the way that you feel. Right, let me just recap quickly. I seem to be doing very well in time. Right, let me just do this very, very quickly just to recap. Now, as I said before, we must look interested, all right? Look interested, make sure that we give our undivided attention. I made a point earlier about making sure that you master the ability of asking questions. The quality of your learning will be determined by the quality of the questions you ask. Stay on target. Don't allow yourself to be sidetracked or manipulated. Stay focused. Deal with one thing at a time. Remember, test your understanding. Don't forget, we spend millions and billions of pounds in examinations and appraisal systems in companies to try and make sure that what is received is what's equal to what was sent. And so it's very, very important that you give feedback. Always, always give or receive feedback. Very important that you do so. Evaluate the whole message. Remember I said before, messages come through three elements: words, tone of voice, and body language. 93% of what you heard or what you understood was through nonverbal communication. So observe your own body language as well as the other person's. Remember what I said. The hardest thing on planet Earth, I believe, is being able to control our feelings, being able to neutralize or control our feelings. All right? All right then. Let me share with you now what I call the 7 barriers to listening. 7 great barriers to listening. All right. I'll put them all up in one go so you can see the memory aid that I use to remind me. Are you? The first one is assumptions. You know, you've probably heard the phrase, assumee. If you assume, you'll make an ass out of yourself and me. Assumptions is very dangerous. If you make decisions upon assumptions, you lose most of the time. May not lose all the time, but you lose most of the time. Assumptions is really one of the reasons why most misunderstandings take place. If you have an assumption, don't make a decision based upon your assumption. Make sure you get the facts. Make absolutely certain that you get the facts. Again, assumption will make an ass out of you on the other person. The second great barrier is what I call the roaming mind. When you're listening to somebody, oftentimes our mind is roaming around from things to things, from situation to situations. We listen 4 times faster than the speed of speech. Now, we may listen up to, say, around 600 words per minute. Maybe the person is speaking 150 to 125 words per minute. Therefore, you have spare capacity. That's why sometimes when you're listening to someone, your mind wanders off maybe to your holiday or maybe to some situation that you have to deal with later, and then it comes back. I was talking to my children one morning, and I said to my daughter, her name is Pepsi, I said, Pepsi. She was sitting right there. I said, Pepsi, where were you? She said, right here, Daddy. I said, no, Pepsi, where were you? She said, Daddy, I was right here. I said, no, Pepsi, where were you? She said, oh, I was at school, Daddy. Her body was in the room, but her mind was far away. That's why God said it to the children of Israel. These people worship me with their lips, but their heart are what? Far removed. So make sure your lips, your heart, your mind is on what you're dealing with. Someone once said, wherever you are, be there. When you're listening to someone, be there. Don't do anything else. Just focus on what the person has to say. So don't allow your mind to roam and wander from place to place. It will indeed be embarrassing. The third major barriers to listening is what I call external and internal distractions. External distractions are things like noise. Are you with me? Maybe the room is too cold. External distraction could be people coming in and going out. Maybe you're not in the right environment, for example. So it's very important, depending on the urgency and the importance of what you're talking about, you might have to find a place where there's going to be less external distractions. Internal distractions are anything that's going on in your head or in your body. It may be that you're not feeling well, or you're very tired, or you might be prejudiced. In other words, the person you listen to, you don't really regard them as important, and therefore you're not going to listen very, very well. So always observe the external or the internal factors that can actually stop effective listening taking place. And there are so many external and internal distractions that I can talk about. But one of the key ones, which is the internal one, is the prejudice one. You know, the person that we're listening to is not important enough. It's interesting, actually, when you believe the person to be very important, don't we give them our undivided attention? Say, for example, you were right now listening to the Queen. How would you do it? If you were sitting before Mr. Obama or the Prime Minister or the President of the United States of America or so, or let's say whoever, and that person was important to you, you would give that person your undivided attention, and you'd make absolutely certain that you do everything in your power to understand them. The fourth barrier is what I call your interpretation and distortion. Don't forget what I said before. Different words mean different things to different people. So when people are listening, they're filtering it through, remember I talked about viable culture, through their values, are you with me, their beliefs, are you with me, their culture, and all of those different things that they are filtering, things through. So people interpret it a certain way, and then they distort it. Different words mean different things to different people. I said that to you earlier. Different words mean different things to different people. So people are, doing things in a certain way. So be very, very careful of that. Oversensitivity. This is where people become irate and angry. I mean, this happens so much. I listen sometimes to some of these talk shows that go on TV. I mean, it's just disgraceful the way people behave. Nobody's listening to anybody. I mean, it's just really crazy. I don't even know why I watch it. I think I get more amusement out of the way they behave than what they're saying. It's just no wonder people, love bad fake news and all that kind of stuff, because it's just crazy. And I think one of the things is, as I said earlier, we are not trained how to listen, so we don't know how to listen. We think we do, but we're not really listening properly. Listening is hard work. Listen to this carefully. We hear with our ears, but we listen with our mind. That's significant. We hear with our ears, but we listen with our mind. Which one are you listening with? Your ears or your mind? What I'm talking about here tonight is listening with your mind. Not becoming, angry, because remember what I said before, anger stops effective communication. It leads to other foolishness and so on. Number 6 is unclear speaker. Now, in some cases, we do have some poor speakers, and not because they want to be poor, but it's just English may not be their first language, and therefore it's very challenging to listen to someone who is not as clear as you would like them to be. So in that case, we could say poor speaker can cause difficulty. But there are some other poor speakers who does speak very poorly. Their English, their mannerism and words used are very, very poor. So it makes it very, very difficult for people who are listening to listen effectively, unfortunately. The final one is what I call unforgiving. You can't forgive your spouse. You can't forgive your brother or sister. You can't forgive so-and-so. Hey, you're not going to listen to them. If you can't forgive the other person, or there is prejudice, or there is some form of, oversensitivity situation involved, you just ain't going to listen. It's hard to listen to people you don't like. Let me say that. It's very difficult to listen to people you don't like. You don't appreciate them. You don't think they have anything to say to you, or maybe they've done something to you in the past. So it becomes extremely difficult to actually listen to somebody who you haven't forgive. You just haven't got over that thing that they did to you, or what they said about you, or what they should have done they didn't do, and so on. So until you overcome that, and you're not going to be able to listen to them effectively. I've observed myself on numerous occasions when I'm listening to somebody that I'm holding something against them. You with me? I either haven't forgotten something they did, or I haven't forgiven them of something they've said or done, and I'm still harboring it and I'm holding it. I ain't really, I might look like I'm listening, but I'm really not really that keen to actually give that person my undivided attention. So be careful of being in that position. You want to make sure you handle or deal with any situations that may affect you from listening to or talking to the other person. So unforgiveness is really, really, really a powerful, powerful one. So again, I want to just reiterate the 7 barriers to listening. I believe every barrier to listening can be placed under one of these 7 headings. Normally, when I run a training course, I always ask people in groups to list the barriers to listening. And they would come up normally around 30 to 35 things they would write on the board. What I've done over the years is I have brought them down into these 7 areas. I think these are the 7 indisputable barriers to listening that I know. And anything else you can think of, maybe I can fit it within one of these 7 areas. Assumption. Don't make decisions based on assumptions. You may start off with an assumption, but make sure you get the facts, okay? Ask questions, listen to what the person is saying, test your understanding, and so on. All right? Make sure you get the facts. Don't make decisions based on assumption. You'll make an ass out of yourself and out of the other person. Remember, when you're listening, your mind is wandering off, doing all kind of different and strange things. So you want to keep your mind focused And what you could be doing basically, because you got all this spare capacity, you could be evaluating the whole message, evaluating what they're saying in the words, evaluating their tone, and evaluating also their body language. So you actually keep your mind focused on what's going on, making sure you get the full amount of information rather than allowing your mind to wander off. If your mind wander off into something completely unrelated, you're just not listening, all right? Remember those external distractions like noise? Are you with me? You know, telephones ringing, you know, being involved in it and the computer and watching TV, those external distractions. Remember those internal ones like tiredness, you know, fatigue and so on. Maybe you're too hungry to talk right now, or maybe you're too angry. Maybe you're just too insensitive to talk right now. Well, don't deal with it now. Put it off for another date, all right? But these internal distractions, and there are lots of them, all right? Your interpretation of what's being said. Remember, different words mean different things to different people. So you're hearing what people are saying, and you're filtering them through your culture and all of that stuff. And guess what? You're distorting it. If I were to ask you this question, draw a small I and dot it, what would you do? I want you to do this. You might want to do it in your mind if you can't do it. Draw a small I and dot it. Now the question really is, do you understand what I said to draw? Now I was thinking of an I and dot it, where you write the letter IT and then put a dot on top of the I, you know, something like that anyway. So I do that I say that to say this, that different things mean different things. Different words mean different things to different people. So when I say draw a small I and dot it, every time I've done that, okay, in a group of around, say, 20 people, I get around 15 different responses. It's amazing, isn't it? 15 different responses from what I've said. And generally, nobody get exactly what I meant. But in the process of feedback, you would clearly be able to understand. All right? So be careful of the way you're interpreting things. Ask lots of questions, give feedback. Be very careful about oversensitivity, becoming irate or angry, because your anger will close and stop the communication. Anger is really one of those big things that tells me that people have not been able to control themselves, neutralize or control their feelings. Unclear speaker. Make sure when you speak, listen to yourself. When you speak, be clear. Be direct, be specific. Don't beat around the bush. Don't be a passive or an aggressive listener, but be assertive. I'm okay, you're okay. You're as interested in the other person as you are in yourself. So when you speak, listen to what you said. Listen to the words that you use. Watch out the tone of your voice. Try to see your body language. In other words, your mouth, your appearance, your gesture, your posture, your eyes. Are you with me? Are you looking up, looking sideways, looking down? What exactly are you doing? All right? And that will give you lots and lots of clues. As I said again, one of the key barriers is unforgiveness. Not forgiving the person that you're talking to because you're holding something against them, because maybe something you heard that they said, or whatever the case might be. You know, you're not talking to your sister, your brother, your mother, your father, your hog, your dog, or your frog. It's going to be hard to listen to them. Husbands or wives often say the hardest person to listen to is their own partner, their own spouse. Now, that should be the person the easiest to listen to. People say it's the hardest. I wonder why. All right. Now, I'm coming to the end, and you know, as I come to the end, I want to just say this, that when you're listening to someone, make absolutely certain that you stop all that you're doing, stop what you're doing, and make absolutely certain that you listen. All right? The purpose of your listening to that person is to make absolutely certain that you understand exactly what they're saying. And it is only when you understand what they are saying, listen to this carefully, it is only when you understand what they're saying that you can now act. So stop, listen, understand, and act. I want to share with you these points as I'm coming to a close. It looks as if I was able to go through. I love these statements and these quotes by some really famous people who have made some really powerful contribution, if you like, over the years. And I want to start with a guy called Simon Sinek. And he said, there is a difference between listening and waiting for your turn to speak. I think that is so powerful. There's a vast difference between listening and waiting for your turn to speak. And that's what a lot of people do. When they're listening to somebody, they're really not listening. They're really just waiting to interrupt or to jump in with what they have to say. If you're doing that, you're not listening. Leo Tor says, silence is a source of great strength. Oh my goodness, that is so true. Silence is most definitely a source of great strength. Let me just bring my picture back. Okay, I think I should be okay here. Just because I didn't do what you told me doesn't mean I wasn't listening. That is such a really important point. Just because I didn't do what you told me doesn't mean I was not listening. And that, you know, I remember one day my daughter saying to me, Daddy, you're not listening. And I said to her, do you mean I didn't hear you, or do you mean I didn't do as you say? And really, the truth of the matter is that I was listening to what she had to say. It's just that I didn't agree with what she said. Listening looks easy, but it's not simple. Every head is a world. And that is just a powerful, powerful point by the Cuban proverb. Listening looks easy, but it's not simple. Every head is a world. And that is so true. If you think of the other person that you're listening to or talking to as another world, then I think that would give you a great, great clue. Carl Rogers was a very powerful psychotherapist who died some years back. He says, man's inability to communicate is a result of his failure to listen effectively. And that is so true. Our inability to communicate is a result of the fact that we are not listening. Hence the reason why I keep on saying this should be taught in schools. I believe it should be taught in schools and in all educational institutions. I love what Winston Churchill says. Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. But courage is also what it takes to sit down and to listen. What a powerful point, eh? Courage is what it takes to stand up and speak. Courage is also what it takes to sit down and to listen. It's really hard nowadays to find people who will listen to you and would pay attention as effectively as I have made mention tonight. Just want to say again, thank you so much for tuning in to the webinar tonight. It's been a pleasure indeed to be here with you guys, and thank you so very much for coming. Remember these words by King Solomon. You know, if you're not listening to the other person, you're going to embarrass yourself. You're going to look rather very, very foolish. And not only that, you are being stupid and also very insulting. So look interested, inquire with questions, stay on target, test your understanding, evaluate the message, and neutralize your feelings. Those are the 6 tips that I brought to you tonight. I strongly recommend that you do your best to master these. The more you do these, is the more you are mastering listening. Look interested, inquire with questions, stay on target, test your understanding, evaluate the message, and neutralize your feelings. And then finally, in terms of the 6 or 7 barriers to listening, The 7 barriers to listeners, as I've listed here, is be careful of assumptions, be careful of the Roman mind, external, internal distractions, be careful of your interpretation and distortion, be careful of oversensitivity, be careful of not speaking clearly, and be careful of your feelings towards others in terms of unforgiving. I want to say thank you so very, very much for tuning in tonight. Thank you, Pat and Lucas, for tuning in, and for everybody else who was here tonight. Really do appreciate you guys coming. I hope this was beneficial to you. I hope you gained something from it, and I hope it improves your life. As I said, my passion is developing attitude, skills, and knowledge through learning, and that's my focus. And wish you guys all the very best. So take care of yourself and your family. I will be right back here next week with something else. Bye for now.